Right.
That's really late. Yeah, Steve, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say my experience is that the testing is amazingly ad hoc. I mean, one of the key indicators is if your process is to include the test cases that you use to reveal, the customer finds a defect, they report it to you. As we're trying to figure out what the problem is, we have test cases that then illustrate what the underlying code problem is. That the testing policy is whatever test cases we use to reveal that defect become part of the test suite. In other words, the tests are entirely reactionary to what defects our customers are encountering when they're using our system. There's essentially nothing proactive, it's entirely reactive.
Right. And I think I think you want to include those reactive cases, the things that got through, but they shouldn't be driving your entire test process. They should be trying to fill in gaps that you have from your defined tests. If something got through, it's a great thing to add back to your tests, but it shouldn't be your test plan. It shouldn't be your test program.
But then I would argue that it's pointing out a severe inadequacy in what you had planned to do.
Well, obviously a bug got through, right? Could be a whole slew of bugs got through. It could be you had a pretty good, you could maybe you use some of these techniques we're going to talk about here, but things still get through. Good idea to go back and review your test cases and add anything that did get
Mm-hmm.
through your tests, right? You want to continuously keep improving them. But yes, it should not be your first your first
Your
quality bar.
your first line of defense, yeah.
Right.
No,
Right.
the
Well,
customers really didn't sign up to be your testers.
in the ad hoc sense, Steve, I mean, I can see that an organization who begins to respond to the market. I mean, you respond to your clients. You definitely have to make tests to trap things if someone finds something, right? Even though a bug fix might, largely eliminate the urgency of having that test, but you still do it in a regression set, perhaps. You still have that test in there. But, as you begin throwing more carcasses on the cart, to use a Monty Python visual, uh, um, you know, you will begin to duplicate stuff, right? You'll have a whole bunch of stuff in there that never even got sorted, which really kind of leads to this notion of being more formal about it. But at some point in time, as you add more tests and add more tests and add more tests, I think it does dawn on someone that maybe there's a better way of doing this, right? So how do you get into this idea of adequate, right? How do you approach even thinking about it? What's
Well,
enough
and I think
testing versus not?
and I think that's a trap people get into is they just keep adding tests. And
Right.
it's easy to add lots and lots of tests that don't add any more value, right? If you do just the basics of like your uh, range analysis and your edge, identify your edges, and what's your valid ranges and your invalid ranges. You only need a few tests. It turns out if you use some techniques and design your tests, you can get by with like 5 or 6 tests and cover everything. Whereas it's easy to add dozens or hundreds of tests that all come back with the same results and really don't add any new information or add any more quality. Um, and then costs of maintaining tests are real, right? You can have lots and lots of tests and you have to maintain them. If you change how the software is supposed to work, you're going to have to update those. Now, the good news is you will run into tests that don't work if you change your software if you're doing things right. But you do have to maintain tests. So you don't want thousands of extra tests.
So part of this involves looking at the set of tests that you have and asking the question, why are we testing that? Why does that test case exist? What does it tell me different than some other test case? And so, uh, again, the bottom line here is that most organizations do take a very ad hoc, random, reactionary approach. But what we're trying to do is change that around to be a systematic approach. If we can start with a systematic description of the software to be tested And if we can follow a systematic process that gives us a minimum number of test cases that give us the maximum coverage, is the term Brian used, then we get the most efficient and most effective set of test cases. We have to do some amount of testing. That will always be the case. But the point is, are we, to the extent that we have to test, are we efficient in how we're testing, and are we effective in how we're testing? And
Right.
taking a systematic approach to coming up with testing makes it much more efficient, much more effective.
Right. And again, fewer tests, more coverage. That's kind of the goal, right? And I mentioned like black box testing.